You have shaken this powder into eggnog, grated it over pumpkin pie, stirred it into bechamel without a second thought. Nutmeg. Warm, sweet, forgettable. A background spice that shows up in November and disappears by January. But here is something that might surprise you. Nutmeg is not a powder, it is a seed. And wrapped around that seed, inside the same fruit, is a bright crimson web that becomes a completely different spice called mace. One tree, one fruit, two spices. No other plant on Earth does this. That little brown jar in your cabinet once moved nations, erased a civilization, and got traded for Manhattan. For centuries, the only place on Earth where nutmeg grew was a chain of 10 tiny volcanic islands in eastern Indonesia called the Banda Islands. Arab traders brought the spice to Europe around the 6th century and kept the source secret. By the Middle Ages, Europeans believed nutmeg cured the bubonic plague. It sold for more by weight than gold. Then the Europeans came looking for the source. 1512. The Portuguese reached the Banda Islands first. 1599. The Dutch East India Company arrives and wants something no one had demanded before. A total monopoly. Every last seed. The Bandanese refused. In 1621, Governor-General John Peter Soon Cohen launched a military assault on the islands. Population before the attack, roughly 15,000. Survivors, barely 1,000. The Dutch divided the islands into 68 plantations worked by enslaved people brought from across Southeast Asia. The English had held one tiny island, Run. In 1667, the Treaty of Breda settled the dispute. England ceded Run to the Dutch. In exchange, the Dutch gave up a swampy outpost on the other side of the world called New Amsterdam. Today we call it New York City. Then something else happened. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The tree that produces nutmeg, Myristica fragrans, is an evergreen that grows up to 20 meters tall. It takes 7 to 9 years before it produces a single fruit. The fruit looks like a small yellow apricot hanging from a branch. When the fruit ripens, it splits open on the tree, and inside is a structure unlike anything else in the spice world. 3 layers, 3 products. The outer flesh, called the pericarp, is thick and pale. In Indonesia, locals sometimes candy it or cook it into jam. Most of the world never sees it. It is not exported at scale. Peel that away, and you find the real surprise. A bright crimson web-like membrane wrapped directly around the hard seed. This lace is the aril. This is mace. Workers peel the aril off by hand. Carefully. It tears easily, and torn mace loses value. The strands are flattened between wooden boards and dried in the sun. Over days, the color shifts from vivid red to a deep yellowish orange. Mace is its own spice. More delicate and slightly sweeter than nutmeg, with a fragrance closer to cinnamon. It costs significantly more because each fruit yields only a thin sliver. Hundreds of fruits fill a single jar. Now crack the shell underneath. The seed inside is dark, oily, and dense. This is nutmeg. The seeds are spread on woven bamboo mats and sun-dried for 6 to 8 weeks. Every day, workers turn them by hand. The quality test is sound, not sight. Shake the seed. When it rattles inside its shell, loose, dry, knocking against the walls, it is ready. That rattle is the signal. No rattle, not ready. No machine replicates this. No shortcut exists. At this point, what started as a soft tropical fruit now looks like a small wrinkled stone. But inside that stone are over 40 identified chemical compounds. The dominant one is myristicin, making up roughly 4 to 8% of the essential oil by weight. At the pinch you use in eggnog, myristicin does nothing noticeable. It adds warmth, depth, a faint sweetness. It sits quietly in the background. Indonesia still produces roughly 75% of the world's nutmeg. The second largest producer sits more than 16,000 kilometers away. Grenada, a Caribbean island nation so proud of the spice that it put a nutmeg on its national flag. The only country on Earth with a spice on its flag. The global nutmeg market in 2026, $1.49 billion. Nutmeg oil at 0.05% concentration works as both a flavoring agent and a natural antimicrobial, which is why food manufacturers are increasingly using it to replace synthetic preservatives in premium chilled foods. One fruit, Peel the lace, dry the seed, wait for the rattle. That is it. You do not go looking for nutmeg. Nutmeg is already everywhere. Coca-Cola uses nutmeg as part of its proprietary flavor blend. The same compound profile that includes a molecule most people would never associate with a soft drink. Every autumn, pumpkin spice floods the market. Starbucks, McCormick, every seasonal product on every shelf, nutmeg is a mandatory component. The flavor that defines an entire cultural season is built on a spice that caused a genocide. And it is not just food. In 2025, some of the most marketed men's fragrances, Burberry, Victor, and Rolf, Hugo Boss, use nutmeg as a core note. The spice once traded for Manhattan now sells as warm, leather-adjacent sophistication in a glass bottle. You have been consuming nutmeg your entire life. You just never read the label. Here is where the story flips. You have processed the history, war, genocide, an island traded for Manhattan. You think the danger of nutmeg ended centuries ago. It did not. Myristicin, the compound from the process section, has a second life. In large doses, the body converts it into a substance structurally related to MDMA. At 5 grams, roughly 2 tablespoons, it triggers hallucinations, rapid heart rate, and paranoia lasting up to 72 hours. Malcolm X described prison inmates stirring matchboxes of nutmeg into cold water. He said it hit like 3 or 4 reefers. In 2020, the TikTok Nutmeg Challenge sent teenagers to emergency rooms. The most forgettable spice in your rack is a psychoactive substance sitting between the oregano and the paprika. Try this. Next time you pass the spice aisle, pick up a whole nutmeg instead of the jar. Hold it. Hard, dense, heavier than you expect. Grate it fresh, and the difference is immediate. A sharp, resinous perfume that pre-ground nutmeg lost months ago. Whole nutmeg holds its oils for years. Ground nutmeg fades the moment the jar opens. Nobody is claiming nutmeg is dangerous in your kitchen. A pinch in eggnog just contains a fraction of a psychoactive dose. The real risk is treating a pharmacologically active seed like harmless brown dust, because that is how misinformation travels. Connecticut is still called the nutmeg state. The legend says Yankee peddlers carved wooden nutmegs and sold them as real. Historians suspect the truth is simpler. Customers did not know you grate a nutmeg, not crack it like a walnut. The seeds were so hard buyers assumed they were fakes. The real fake is the story we tell ourselves that nutmeg is just a holiday spice. Branding reduced a world-shaping commodity to a background ingredient. That is where misconceptions hide, not in fraud, in familiarity. Next time you shake that jar into your eggnog, you are holding a seed that moved nations and erased a civilization. That is the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there is something you would like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.